want to finish out this show with talking about life insurance. And I know the minute I say I'm hearing the ones in the background already, right? Like, but I want to reframe this thing for a minute. So most people, when they think about life insurance, they think about like income replacement while they're working, right? And typically that's done with like term insurance. And term insurance, again, like we're not huge fans, right? Term insurance, you're basically renting the coverage for 10, 15, 20 years. You're paying a premium. As long as you pay the premium, you're covered. But the minute that whatever time frame you purchase that product for, if it's 20-year term, at the end of that 20 years, if nothing happened and you never filed a claim, then all the money you paid in premiums is gone. And that's fine for
good in your working career.
If you took out a 30-year mortgage and you owed $350,000 on the house and you were worried about what happens if all of a sudden I'm gone and a car accident and what my spouse, where would they go, what would they do? They wouldn't be able to pay the mortgage anymore. They then taking out a $350,000 term policy and holding it for 20, 30 years till you got that mortgage paid down or paid off, to cover just that circumstance of like, if you're not here anymore, that makes sense. And I think that's sound financial planning. But when we talk about life insurance for retired folks, that's a whole different ballgame. What we use life insurance for when you're retired is estate planning. And it is a powerful, powerful tool when it comes to estate planning. So we've already talked about the power of Roth conversions and how much sense it makes to leave your kids Roth money that's tax-free, that they don't have to worry about it, and it's just every dollar they get to keep. So that's, we've already talked about that, and that makes a lot of sense. But what's the other way to multiply your legacy and leave them tax-free money? Well, if we do your retirement income plan and we model out everything and we use very conservative, numbers for your assumed rate of return, and we use high inflation numbers, and we use, very conservative cost of living adjustments on everything. And we really model out that plan, and we see, okay, even into the worst circumstances, you're still going to leave the kids $500,000. I mean, there's just in no world is that not going to happen. And so, we're looking at that and saying, okay, now you're 60, you're healthy. Hopefully, if you're not, it's not an option. But if you're 60 and you're healthy, even older, you're 65, 70, and you're healthy, right? And we know that we're leaving them $500,000, even in the worst circumstances. Would it make sense for you to take that money and buy life insurance with it and, put $500,000 into a life insurance policy that upon your death is going to leave them $2 million, and that all is tax-free inheritance to them? That makes sense to me. And then that is a no-brainer. So, understand the power of life insurance and what it can do for your portfolio as far as leaving a legacy to, to your beneficiaries, whoever that might be. I mean, you might be leaving it to your spouse, and you might say, you know what, I want to make sure that instead of, $500,000 that I'm going to leave my spouse, I want to make sure I'll leave her $2.5 million. And I think she'll be in a much better, stronger situation if I do that, as opposed to just leaving her this 500,000 that, may be taxable. So, this is a very powerful tool when it comes to estate planning. And, there are ways that you can even create trust and fund them with life insurance. And it, it gets very, very powerful when you combine those two tools together to fund. And there's all kinds of really interesting strategies around those tools that you can use to help make sure that you maximize and leave your heirs, $5 for every dollar or $10 for every dollar that you would have left them, as long as you're planning. And that's the power of planning and understanding this stuff on the front end. So, if you're healthy and you qualify and you're looking at this and you're seeing the kind of things we're seeing, consider using life insurance as a powerful estate planning tool. And let's quadruple, the amount of legacy you can leave to the kids or to your beneficiaries in a tax-free manner.
Yeah.
The other thing that we see in, estate planning, the other way that we've been able to successfully use life insurance for that is, we see issues all the time. I was working with a family last year, and I'll use them as an example. They were a family that owned a family business that was extremely successful and was generating tons of revenue and was, a really profitable family business that they owned. And they had 3 of their 4 children working in the business. And they, it was a great situation. They were all worked very hard. The business was very successful, but they have one child who had gone a different direction. Now, that child was very successful in their own right and had chosen a different profession gone into the medical profession and done very, very well for themselves. And, they were also very proud of. But they were having this dilemma and saying, hey, we know we're going to leave the 3 that work in the business. They're getting the business, right? That just makes sense. But what are we going to do for that one child that has nothing to do with the business? This isn't fair, right? We can't just cut her out of the deal. So we don't know what to do. And then we're losing sleep over, right? They really were. Well, what we ended up doing is, life insurance can be a powerful estate equalizer.
Yeah.
So, I said, okay, well, what do you think the value of the business is at this point? And, they fortunately had just gone through a valuation and have paid a company to value the business for some other things that they were doing in their planning. And so it was ideal time. So they had a really good number of what that business is worth. And I said, okay, well, why don't we take, 1/4 of that and let's buy life insurance and make that one child that's not in the business the beneficiary of this policy, so that, when you guys do pass and the other children inherit, we did what's called a second to die policy, which gets a little complicated. The benefit's not paid out until the second spouse dies, which was perfect for this situation. But let's equalize this that way, so that child gets the life insurance proceeds and they don't feel like they got cut out of the deal, right? Like they don't feel like that they were less or you loved them less or any of that stuff, because that's what people worry about, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the reality of it. Like I love them all and I don't want to hurt their feelings. And I can tell you this, if you left me a significant amount of tax-free money in a life insurance policy,
I'd feel loved.
I have no hurt feelings here.
Right.
So, So it can be really, really good for that kind of situation. And you know, the last thing that I would say is if you have a significant estate that you're leaving behind, and you know that there's going to be, taxes due on that estate,
Right.
you know, sometimes having a life insurance policy in place to immediately get the death benefit paid out and have that money free immediately to pay taxes with, or any other type of, you know, expenses that could arise just to maintain that estate or whatever it takes until things can kind of all get settled. Life insurance can be great for that. So don't think of life insurance as solely this uh,
Expense. Yeah.
expense. It can be a really, really smart, powerful estate planning tool.
Yeah.
And if that triggers some thoughts for you and made you, think, I've never really thought about it that way. And you want to have a conversation. You want to talk about, how maybe you can utilize that tool. And you want to just, go to clearpathretirement.com, let us know, and let's have that conversation about, how to use these tools correctly and to how to structure things. We have, estate planning attorneys and people that we have as resources that if we don't know the answer, we'll get the answers.
Yeah.
But we've done enough of these and worked enough to where I feel like, we can really, really help you in this arena. And so we can establish the trust. We can, we can help you learn how to fund it. We can hold your hand and guide you through the process. All of those things that you're wondering about, we can help you with. So thanks for joining us today. This has been a lot of fun to talk to you guys about this stuff. We are Clearpath Retirement. We are veteran owned here in Greenville, South Carolina, serving the Carolinas. And until next week, happy retirement, guys.